The mansion gates trembled under the roar of an approaching truck. Its headlights cut through the night like knives, its tires screeching as it swerved dangerously toward the entrance. The guards shouted, their whistles pierced the air, and in that split second, panic seized everyone. The old gatekeeper, bent with age, stumbled in the truck's path, frozen with fear. And then, something no one expected happened. Chief Okafor, billionaire, master of empires, a man always seen in crisp suits and chauffeured cars, sprang forward. His powerful frame moved with surprising speed, his hand yanking the old gatekeeper away just as the truck thundered past, crashing into the iron gates with a deafening clang. Sparks flew. Metal groaned. The air filled with chaos. The guards rushed, servants screamed, but there, in the dust and confusion, stood the chief, holding the terrified old man upright. For once, the billionaire was not seated at the head of a boardroom table, not sipping from a crystal glass, not surrounded by the glow of wealth. He was simply a man, breathing hard, having saved another life. "Easy, Baba," he muttered, steadying the gatekeeper with surprising gentleness. "You are safe now." The old man's lips trembled as he whispered, "God bless you, Chief. You saved me." The onlookers exchanged stunned glances. Who would believe it? The same Chief Okafor whose wealth made him untouchable, whose empire made him feared, had thrown himself into danger to save a servant at the gate. The story spread quickly within the compound. Whispers moved from the guards to the maids, from the maids to the cooks. By midnight, the tale had already reached the ears of the city, the billionaire who had saved his gatekeeper. But if only they knew. That night was just the beginning. For while the city marveled at the chief's unexpected act of courage, destiny was quietly setting the stage for a far greater drama, one that would not center on the billionaire, but on those beneath him. In the shadow of the mansion's glittering lights was a man named Daniel. The driver. Poor, loyal, invisible. For years he had served the Okafor family with patience carved deep into his soul. Yet no one told stories about Daniel. To most, he was just another servant, another shadow passing silently through the corridors of wealth. And then there was Amara, the chief's only daughter. Beautiful, confident, born into luxury she never had to earn. To her, Daniel was little more than the wheel of the car, present, useful, but never worthy of attention. Still, fate has a way of breaking the walls that separate the powerful from the powerless. And in the nights to come, Amara would find herself standing at the edge of ruin, and the man she had ignored, her poor driver, would be the only one capable of saving her. So, before we continue this story, pause for a moment. If you are listening right now, make sure you subscribe, because what lies ahead will shock you, move you, and remind you that true heroes are often found in the most unexpected places. The mansion returned to its restless quiet, the gates repaired, the guards back at their posts. Inside, Amara prepared for yet another night of luxury, slipping into a gown worth more than Daniel's yearly wage. She never gave the gate incident a second thought. To her, it was just another evening. To Daniel, it was just another shift. But destiny had already begun to write a story none of them could escape. The night after the incident at the gate, the mansion returned to its usual rhythm of grandeur. Lights glowed across its tall walls, laughter spilled from its banquet hall, and servants hurried through the corridors carrying trays of wine and plates of food. To the outside world, nothing had changed. Chief Okafor was still the powerful billionaire, his family still lived in unimaginable wealth, and the gatekeeper he saved had already disappeared back into the shadows of duty. But not everyone forgot. Daniel had watched from a distance when the chief rushed to save the old man. He saw the determination in his master's eyes, the raw humanity that most never associated with such a powerful figure. It stirred something in him, respect, perhaps, or simply a reminder that even the mighty had moments of humility. Still, he remained in his place. A driver. Quiet, observant, invisible. Daniel's world was a small one. A narrow servant's room with a bed that creaked, a flickering bulb that barely gave light, and a shelf with a few worn-out books. Yet within that simplicity lay the heart of a man who dreamed quietly. He dreamed of building something of his own one day, of earning a life where he could stand tall without bowing to anyone. But dreams, he knew, were costly. And so he kept them folded away in silence. Every morning, he rose before the first rooster's crow, washed in cold water, and dressed in his uniform. He polished the limousine until it gleamed, checked the tires, tested the engine, and stood ready by the driveway. Hours would pass in waiting, yet he never complained. When the chief needed to leave, Daniel was there. When Madame demanded to be dropped at her events, Daniel was there. And when Amara, the chief's daughter, needed to be chauffeured, Daniel was always there. Amara. She was the center of attention wherever she went. Her beauty was undeniable, her presence commanding. But with it came an air of entitlement, sharpened by years of privilege. She never asked if Daniel had eaten. She never cared if he was tired. To her, he was simply the driver, an extension of the car itself. Daniel, faster, she would snap without looking up from her phone. Daniel, open the door. Daniel, don't take that road, I don't like it. She spoke to him as if he were a machine programmed to obey, and he answered only with quiet, yes, madam. His eyes remained on the road, his face expressionless, though in his heart he sometimes wondered what it would be like if she saw him as more than a shadow. One evening, Amara attended a high-profile gala at the city's Grand Hotel. The red carpet blazed with camera flashes as celebrities and tycoons arrived. Amara stepped out of the limousine in a flowing gown, photographers calling her name, admirers drinking in her beauty. Daniel, in his driver's uniform, closed the car door quietly, blending into the background as he always did. Hours later, while she danced and laughed inside, Daniel waited outside in the cold night, leaning against the car. Other drivers gathered in small groups, swapping stories, smoking, laughing to pass the time. Daniel stayed apart, hands in his pockets, his mind wandering. One of the drivers approached him, chuckling. "Ah, Daniel, you're too quiet. Tell me, how does it feel to drive a princess like that every day?" Daniel gave a faint smile. "It feels like driving anyone else." The man laughed, shaking his head. "Anyone else? That one is no ordinary passenger, my friend. She walks as if the world belongs to her." Daniel did not answer. His gaze lifted briefly toward the glowing hotel windows, where Amara's silhouette moved in elegance. He sighed and looked away. Later that night, when the gala ended, Amara returned to the limousine, perfume clinging to her gown, her laughter still echoing. She barely noticed Daniel's tired eyes, nor the long hours he had waited. She simply said, "Take me home," and returned to scrolling her phone. The drive back was silent, except for the hum of the engine and the distant sounds of the city. Daniel drove carefully, as he always did, his hands steady on the wheel. In the rearview mirror, he caught a glimpse of Amara, her head tilted against the seat, her eyes half closed with weariness. For a moment, she seemed less like the spoiled daughter of a billionaire and more like a lonely girl lost in her own world. But the thought faded quickly. She was not his concern. At the mansion, she swept inside without a word of thanks. Daniel parked the car, switched off the engine, and walked back to his quarters. Another long day had ended, and another long day awaited him at dawn. But somewhere in the silent hours of that night, fate stirred. Unseen threads began to weave. Choices and chances began to align. Daniel did not know it yet, but his life was standing on the edge of change. For soon, Amara would be caught in a storm her wealth could not shield her from. And the man she never noticed, the driver she dismissed, would be the only one who could save her. The sun rose over the city like fires spilling across the horizon. At the Okafor mansion, the day began with its usual display of wealth, servants moving briskly through the hallways, gardeners trimming the vast lawns, cooks busy in the grand kitchen preparing a breakfast table fit for royalty. Inside the dining hall, Amara sat across from her father. Chief Okafor, stern and imposing, read silently from a thick stack of papers while sipping black coffee. His empire, Zenith Holdings, was struggling. He didn't say it out loud, but the numbers in his hand told a story of decline. Yet pride kept his face unreadable. Amara, dressed elegantly even at breakfast, drummed her nails on the polished table. "Daddy," she said casually, "I need some extra cash. There's a fashion show in Dubai next month, and I can't afford to miss it." The chief lowered his papers slowly, his eyes narrowing. Amara, do you ever think of anything besides clothes, parties, and travel? Do you know what's happening to my company? She rolled her eyes. That's your company, Daddy. Not mine. All I need is the card topped up. Please. The chief's jaw tightened. He loved his daughter dearly, but her naivety, her detachment from reality, gnawed at him. Still, he couldn't refuse her. With a sigh, he gestured for one of the aides to handle it. Daniel stood silently by the doorway, waiting as always. He had driven Amara here, and now he would drive her again wherever she wished to go. He saw the tension in the chief's eyes, the frustration hidden behind his calm exterior. Daniel noticed things others missed, he always had. Later that day, Amara decided to visit a friend across town. Daniel opened the car door for her, keeping his eyes down as usual. She stepped in, scrolling through her phone, not even acknowledging him. The car glided through the city, weaving past traffic, until the noise of the streets became a blur. But as the ride stretched on, Daniel noticed something unusual. A black SUV appeared in his mirror, following them too closely. At first, he thought little of it. The city was full of cars. But after 3 turns, the SUV was still behind. His grip on the wheel tightened. He slowed at a junction. The SUV slowed. He accelerated. The SUV matched his pace. Daniel's instincts sharpened. Years of driving had given him a sixth sense for danger, and every nerve in his body now told him something was wrong. Amara, oblivious, was laughing at something on her phone. Why are you driving so tense, Daniel? Relax. I don't want my makeup smudged because of your rough driving. He didn't answer. His eyes stayed on the mirror. The SUV was still there. 2 men sat in the front, their faces stern, their eyes locked on the limousine. Daniel took a sudden left turn into a quieter street. The SUV followed instantly. His heart pounded. This was no coincidence. Madam, he said firmly, his voice steady but urgent, please, put your phone away. Something is wrong. Amara looked up, frowning. What are you talking about? Just drive me to Sandra's place. Don't waste my time. Madam, listen to me, Daniel insisted. We are being followed. She scoffed, but before she could argue further, the SUV swerved suddenly, pulling up beside them. The window rolled down. A flash of cold eyes. A glint of metal. Daniel's heart raced. He slammed his foot on the accelerator, the limousine roaring forward. Tires screeched against the pavement. Amara gasped, clutching the seat as the car lurched. What are you doing? She shouted. Saving your life, Daniel muttered under his breath. The SUV gave chase, its engine growling like a predator on the hunt. Down narrow streets, through crowded markets, Daniel maneuvered the limousine with skill that astonished even himself. Horns blared, people scattered, vendors shouted as the massive car darted past. Amara's fear began to grow. For the first time in her life, she saw the world beyond her luxury bubble, raw, dangerous, unpredictable. Her hands trembled as she held onto the seat, her eyes wide. The chase stretched on, a deadly dance through the city. At every turn, the SUV closed in. Daniel's mind raced. He needed to lose them, but he also had to keep Amara safe. Finally, spotting a narrow alley between 2 old warehouses, he made a sharp turn. The limousine barely squeezed through, scraping against the walls, sparks flying. The SUV tried to follow but slammed against the corner, its front bumper tearing off with a violent crunch. Daniel didn't wait to see more. He sped through the alley and out the other side, racing until the roads grew quieter, until no headlights trailed them anymore. Only then did he slow the car, his chest heaving, sweat dripping down his brow. Amara sat frozen in the back seat, her phone forgotten on the floor. Her lips parted, but no words came. For once, the arrogant tone was gone. Her eyes met Daniel's in the mirror, and for the first time, she truly saw him, not as a driver, not as a servant, but as the man who had just risked everything to protect her. The silence in the car was heavy, broken only by the sound of their breathing. Who were they? She whispered at last. Daniel shook his head. I don't know, madam. But this was no random chase. Someone is after you. Her fingers trembled as she clutched her dress. The world she knew, The parties, the glamour, the careless laughter, seemed to shatter in that instant. And somewhere in the city, in a shadowed room, the men from the SUV nursed their failure. One of them slammed his fist on the table. "We'll get her next time," he growled. The hunt had only just begun. The mansion was wrapped in uneasy silence that evening. Amara had returned shaken from the chase, but she told no one except Daniel. Pride and fear wrestled inside her. Pride kept her mouth shut. She did not want her father to see her rattled. Fear kept her awake, replaying the glint of cold eyes and the screech of tires in her mind. In her room, surrounded by silk curtains and glittering chandeliers, she paced restlessly. For the first time in her life, luxury brought her no comfort. She had always believed her father's wealth made her untouchable. Tonight, she learned it made her a target. Down in the servant quarters, Daniel sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the cracked ceiling. He knew the danger was not over. Whoever had sent those men would try again. And next time, they might succeed. His duty was simple: drive the car, follow orders. Yet his conscience whispered louder, protect her. The next day began like any other. Chief Okafor attended meetings. Amara prepared to visit a designer's showroom. Daniel polished the limousine until it shone like a mirror, though his eyes constantly swept the street for danger. At noon they set out. The city was alive with its usual chaos: hawkers weaving between cars, horns blaring, the smell of roasted corn drifting through the air. Amara sat in the back, her face pale despite her attempt to appear unbothered. She clutched her handbag tightly, her eyes darting occasionally to the mirrors. Daniel noticed but said nothing. Halfway through the journey, it happened. From a side street, two SUVs roared forward, blocking the road. Another cut in behind them. The limousine was trapped. Daniel's pulse thundered. "Down!" he barked, his voice sharp, commanding. Amara froze. "What?" "Get down now." The doors of the SUVs flew open. Masked men jumped out, armed with batons and ropes. Their boots pounded against the asphalt as they closed in. Daniel slammed the gear into reverse, tires screaming, but the SUV behind had already blocked the way. He tried forward again. Impossible. They were surrounded. Amara gasped, terror flooding her eyes. "Daniel, what do we do?" His mind raced. He had no weapon, no backup, just his courage, his wits, and the car. The first man banged on the window with the butt of a baton, shouting. Another yanked at the handle, but the locks held. The limousine shook as fists pounded against it. "Stay down," Daniel said firmly, his knuckles white on the wheel. "Don't move." And then, with a roar, he floored the accelerator. The limousine surged forward, slamming into the SUV blocking the way. Metal crunched, glass shattered. The attackers stumbled back in shock as Daniel forced the car through, sparks flying, the engine screaming with effort. "Hold on," he shouted. Amara clung to the seat as the limousine burst free, weaving wildly through the streets. The attackers scrambled into their vehicles, giving chase once more. This was no ordinary pursuit now. It was war. Daniel maneuvered through alleys, swerved past startled pedestrians, and pushed the limousine harder than it had ever been driven. Every corner brought new danger. The SUVs were relentless, their engines growling like beasts. Amara's breaths came fast and shallow. Her manicured nails dug into the leather seat. For the first time in her life, she felt utterly powerless. But alongside her fear was something new: trust. Trust in the man at the wheel. Minutes stretched like hours as the chase tore through the city. Daniel's instincts guided him, but he knew they couldn't outrun forever. The attackers had numbers, resources, and ruthless determination. Finally, near the edge of the city, where abandoned warehouses stood like skeletons of forgotten industry, the SUVs boxed them in again. Daniel swerved, but there was no escape this time. The limousine screeched to a halt. Doors flew open. Masked men surged forward. Daniel stepped out. Alone. Empty-handed. Amara's scream pierced the air. "Daniel, don't." But his eyes burned with fire. He was no longer just a driver. He was a shield. The men circled, weapons raised. "Hand over the girl," one snarled. Daniel's chest rose and fell as he spread his arms wide, standing between them and the car. "You'll have to go through me." The leader smirked, lifting his baton. "So be it." The clash began. Daniel fought with raw desperation, every punch and strike driven by courage, not training. He ducked, blocked, swung with all his strength. 2 men fell, groaning on the pavement. But more closed in, overwhelming him. A baton struck his back. A fist slammed into his jaw. Blood trickled down his lip, yet he did not fall. He staggered, rose again, and kept fighting. Amara, trembling inside the car, watched in horror. Her world spun as she realized the truth. The man she had mocked, ignored, treated like nothing, was laying down his very life for her. Tears blurred her vision. "No, Daniel," she whispered. At last, sheer numbers overpowered him. Daniel crashed to the ground, gasping, his body battered. Rough hands wrenched the limousine door open. Amara screamed as they grabbed her, dragging her out. "Let me go! Let me go!" she cried, kicking, struggling. But they were too strong. Daniel, bruised and broken, clawed at the ground, forcing himself up. His voice rasped with pain, but his spirit refused to surrender. "Not alone." The attackers shoved him back down. Amara's pleas echoed into the night as she was forced into the SUV. The doors slammed. Engines roared. And in moments, they were gone. Silence fell. The street was empty except for the wrecked limousine and Daniel, lying bloodied but unbroken, staring helplessly at the dust trail of the vanishing cars. His fists clenched against the ground. His heart burned with one promise. He would bring her back, no matter what it cost. The kidnappers' hideout was an abandoned warehouse at the city's edge. Rusted sheets rattled in the wind, broken glass littered the floor, and the air stank of oil and dampness. Inside, Amara sat bound to a chair, fear etched into every line of her face. The men circled her like wolves, their laughter sharp, their voices cruel. "You think your father will ignore us?" the leader sneered, crouching close. "He'll pay. And when he does, we disappear richer than kings. Until then, you sit quietly, princess." Amara's heart pounded, but her mind refused to surrender. In that terrifying silence, her thoughts drifted to Daniel, bruised, beaten, yet refusing to fall. The way he had stood between her and danger burned into her memory. For the first time, she understood the weight of courage. Meanwhile, Daniel dragged himself from the wrecked limousine. Every bone in his body screamed in pain, yet his will was unbroken. He stumbled through dark alleys, his shirt torn, his vision blurred. The only thought in his mind, Amara. He called in favors from fellow drivers, whispered to contacts in the underworld, pieced together scraps of information. Hours bled into a relentless night. Finally, a name, a location. The warehouse. By dawn, Daniel stood before the hideout. Exhausted, empty-handed, but determined. He had no weapons but his courage, no allies but his grit. Yet within him burned a fire no amount of wealth could buy, loyalty, and the unshakable belief that every life, rich or poor, was worth saving. Inside, the kidnappers counted money, laughed over cheap bottles, and argued about their next move. They never saw Daniel slip in through the shadows. Step by step, he moved with silent precision, his heart pounding like a war drum. Then, a crack of wood under his shoe. A sound too small, yet loud enough. The leader spun. "Who's there?" Daniel charged. The clash was brutal. He fought with the desperation of a man with nothing to lose. Fists cracked against jaws, crates toppled, chains rattled. The kidnappers were armed, stronger, more numerous, but Daniel was fueled by something greater. Amara screamed his name, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Daniel!" That single cry gave him strength. Blow after blow, he fought through the pain, knocking men to the ground, refusing to yield. Finally, he faced the leader. The man swung a heavy pipe. Daniel ducked, grabbed his wrist, and with a roar, threw him against the wall. The leader collapsed, groaning, defeated. Breathing ragged, Daniel rushed to Amara, his trembling hands untying her ropes. Her eyes flooded with tears. "You came," she whispered, her voice breaking. Daniel managed a weary smile. I told you. I wouldn't let them take you. She fell into his arms, sobbing against his chest. For the first time, pride vanished from her voice, replaced by gratitude. Thank you for saving me. Together, they staggered out of the warehouse as police sirens wailed in the distance. By the time Chief Okafor arrived, his daughter was safe, and Daniel stood battered but unbowed, the silent hero of the night. The chief's eyes softened with something rare, respect. He placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. You've done what money could not. You've given me back my daughter. From today, you are not just a driver. You are family. Amara, standing beside Daniel, looked at him with new eyes. No longer the invisible servant. No longer just the wheel of the car. He was her protector, her friend, perhaps something more her heart could not yet name. The mansion returned to life, but nothing was the same. Amara walked differently now, with humility. She spoke differently, with kindness. And Daniel, though still in his uniform, carried himself taller, his courage shining brighter than any riches. This tale reminds us of something powerful. True wealth is not measured by money, but by character. Daniel, the poor driver, became the hero when courage was needed most. Amara, the billionaire's daughter, discovered that pride is fragile, but gratitude lasts forever. And Chief Okafor learned that loyalty is the rarest treasure of all. If you enjoyed this story, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next tale of courage, love, and destiny. Because every story carries a lesson, and every lesson has the power to change us.